I wrote it because I know I have limited time. So my name is Jeff Bauman, and I live in Woodbury. I have a daughter, Rachel, who's in 11th grade, and Matthew, who's graduating this year. And Matthew's the reason I'm here tonight. Basically, on behalf of our family, I just wanted to come and say thank you. So for the education, the opportunities that have been presented to him while he's been here at St. Croix Prep for the past 6 years. He'll be attending the University of Northwestern in St. Paul this fall, and because of the AP classes that he's taken, he'll most likely be entering with 32 credits, which is a maximum number of credits that Northwestern will allow in an entire year of college. Right now he's planning on double majoring, so that Head Start helps a lot because he has a decent chance of getting out in 4 years, which financially is a really good deal. We know that we'll know more on Thursday when he's going to register. So in addition to earning the credits, he's also worked very hard in his classes, maintaining a high GPA, which along with his ACT success, earned him the top merit scholarship that Northwestern offers. He's also taken advantage of several leadership opportunities here, including being NHS president and a captain of the speech and debate teams this year, which gave him necessary experience to win a leadership award from Northwestern as well. When we received the news about the credit evaluation and the number of credits we've earned, we were very excited, and frankly, we just wanted to share it with you guys. I thought that you as a school board, as a family, we thought you'd like to hear this as well. The preparatory part of the school's name has worked well for Matthew, and we want to thank you for the opportunities that he's been provided while he's been here. I know there are many other similar stories to Matthew's out there, but you may not hear many of them. And so as a family, we wanted to give you the opportunity to hear a little bit about how the school's positively impacted our family and just say thank you.
Thank you and congratulations.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Thanks. Katie?
Hi, my name's Katie Brecky. I'm in Woodbury as well. I wanted to come. I saw that on the agenda we're going to be talking and discussing about parent survey. I work for a private company, and I'm in our customer service department. And we do surveys at our company. We do both employee surveys as well as customer surveys. And I just thought I'd share a private view of how we use surveys to help aid in maybe how we could use surveys here at St. Croix Prep. And I want to focus on our customer surveys. We do customer surveys because we know we have a blind spot in how we think we do business. So we survey our customers to help know what are the things we can work on. And I look at our opportunity here to do a parent survey as the parents are our customers, right, in terms of how our school is performing, just like my private company has customers as well. And what we choose to do is we start broad so that we know where to focus. So instead of asking very detailed questions about specific things, we do broad brush strokes. And in our business, we talk about customer experience and ease of doing business. So we talk about how is this experience? So we know all of the touch points that we have with our customers, and we ask, are we easy to do business here? Is your customer experience good here? Broad brush strokes. And then we take that information, and that helps us focus on where we should start. Because there's a huge bucket of work, and it's hard to know where to start. So we use that to say, where is the starting point? And I think that that would be a really great opportunity for us, is to use a broader brushstroke on our parent survey to ask about where's the area or two that we should focus on, rather than trying to get super detailed on our parent survey to start, because we don't know, right? That's exactly why we're doing it, is because we want to try and figure out everyone has something to work on. I as a parent and me as an employee has something to work on. My company has something to work on. We want to be the best we can be. And I think that that's how we can use our parent survey, is how do we make our school even better? Use a broad brush stroke to then take that information and go back and dive into where we need to focus. So just want to provide that kind of context from a private company perspective and how we go about the exact same thing we're going to try and do here later this year. So thank you.
Thank you. Daphne, you're up.
Hi, my name is Daphne Corbett, and my daughter Penelope is a 7th grader at this school. I live in Stillwater. I don't know if I'm supposed to say anything else. It's what I've heard a lot at Open Forum in the meetings that I've attended. parent survey keeps coming up, and I know I've talked to a lot of people outside of school, who just casually about, you know, kind of what they're looking for in that, and I know it's been something people are really interested in, so it's great to hear that perspective. My concern that I have today to bring up is related to that, in that I believe it was in October or November, I forget the month, the school's authorizer, Friends of Education, was hired hired Class Measures to work with St. Croix Prep on doing a site survey of the school. And my understanding from the conversations that I have with Tom's husband was that a report would be provided so that we could kind of see what they came up with after they I think it was just a really small group of parents that were kind of gave them feedback. So, and I don't know how they were chosen or whatever, but I was just trying to figure out, like, how do you get that report? I'd love to see what a third-party outside objective group said based on their survey. And I know Tom tried to get the report and was unsuccessful in that. So back in March, I actually contacted Class Measures, and they did say, this is Tim Boyce, who was the lead consultant. He said that this report, this was on March 3rd, he stated, the report has been completed and shared with the school. Many thanks, Tim Boyce. So I know that a report exists, and I was just wondering, is that going to be something that we can see? I know it might then go to Friends of Education for their final touches, or I'm not sure, but I would just like to see the raw report, if that's possible. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to rework the agenda a little bit, and I apologize, but Rich Dipple has to leave shortly, and then so we're going to go with Rich and the Minnesota State High School League first, and then we're going to jump to Paul and Powell to talk about some field development financing. So I think Paul will schedule to speak also. Thanks. Rich, you're on.
Thank you
Should I
very
get
much.
out of here? Are you going to show this?
I don't know, I'll find out, depending on who has not seen the video. Tonight you'll be reapproving our membership in the Minnesota State High School League. This is an annual thing that the board does. One of the points of emphasis on the Minnesota State High School League is to talk about an initiative that was started about 2.5 or 3 years ago by Joey Redmond, one of the executive directors and one of the directors at the Minnesota State High School League, around it was written by Joe, titled Inside Out Coaching, and basically talking about why we play. I know that you were asked to send out a link to this video. Did everybody get a chance to take a look at it ahead of time? Okay. We don't need to watch the video. I just want to share a couple of things about why we play and what we're doing here at St. Croix Prep along the lines of transformational coaching. When I was young, some of us, we had coaches that were a part of our school system on a very large basis. Every one of my coaches was also a professional educator. They were tied into our schools every day. They were professional teachers that carried on into our athletic experiences. Over the last 15 to 20 years, we began to see a change in that. I presented at the Minnesota State High School Athletic Directors Association conference this last spring how we recruit and retain coaches. The realities are we're seeing many more coaches who are not professional educators. Individuals are not staying in coaching as long. There are more coaching opportunities. Obviously, with the advent of the number of schools that we've got, the pool has stayed the same basically, but there's more opportunities. So we need to find ways to make sure that the coaches who are working with our students are aligned with our philosophies. You'll hear an educational philosophy or educationally based athletics, and you'll hear European-based. It's a different model, based more along the lines of an AAU program, a JO volleyball program, a club soccer program. Not that those are bad organizations, but they're built around different contexts. Our programs are still built around the whole student, making sure that the students, when they come out of our programs, have had an experience that adds value to their life long term. The European model is built around wins and losses. We are going to build our teams around the best players beating the other best players. We see that even here now with JO and some of those other programs that have elite programs. In fact, the Minnesota State Legislature, in a period of time not too long ago, moved and had a piece of legislation that would have taken all high school athletics out of the schools and put it into the parks and rec departments or into club programming. It was one that we stopped as quickly as we could. Here at St. Croix Prep, we recognize that about 97% of the kids that play high school athletics in their careers when they graduate, they don't play beyond that. So we have to make sure that we're coaching with purpose for those 97%, the majority of our kids. We're adding value to them. We do keep score. The scoreboards are always on. There is value in winning. You heard Jody say that exact thing during the video. There is value in that, but there's also value in learning how to lose and learning that, no, you don't always get to win and how to win gracefully. There's so many other things that go into that. I'm going to just talk about 4 quick things that we're working on as a staff here over the next year. It's our emphasis as we go in to the 2016-2017 season, or school year. This summer, probably here before actually the end of the school year, we're going to bring our coaches together and we're going to rewrite our handbooks together. As a group, we're going to look at the things that are essential in terms of communication with our parents and with our student athletes, but also culturally, what do we need to make sure we identify in that document, the document that defines our programs or that individual program, so that we are consistent throughout. Second, as members of the new MC2A conference, we're going to participate in a leadership conference that will take place in July. We will send between 10 and 15 of our students to that. We'll talk about what it means to be a leader, to positively affect culture within our schools, and how we then bring those lessons back into our individual buildings. The third thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in a number of the Inside Out coaching books from Mr. Herman, and we're going to do a book study. We're going to do a group together. We'll do a breakfast thing where we meet every other week for a period of time, and we'll sign out chapters. We think that that's an important component so that we have that common language and that common background. Mr. Simon and I will also prepare a presentation that will be a part of each of the parent meetings that are at the beginning of each season. During that meeting, we'll again talk about the language that we're going to share as a group and the culture that we want to create, the importance of the things that we're looking for, so that we are transformational coaches. We have very young coaches in some cases, and we want to make sure that we help them be successful. And even some of us old dogs need to be reminded at times of, yes, you have to make sure that you're looking at the total suite. So as you look at the resolution, that's a lot of what the high school league is emphasizing right now. Obviously, we're heading into tournament time and we're playing section tournaments and state tournaments. But it's also one of the things that makes, I think, the high school league here in Minnesota and the High School Athletic Directors Association unique in that we take a holistic approach when we look at our program. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to be renewing our membership tonight. I just want to take a couple minutes to talk about the why we play process.
Thanks, Rich. Does anybody have questions about what Rich said or about the resolution that was shared in our board package prior to the meeting? Hearing none, I make a motion to adopt this resolution as presented. I'm looking for a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everybody. Motion carries. Thanks for your work. Paul, can you start us off with the field development project update? And in terms of our board packet, everybody, we're looking at this. This is where we are. And Paul is going to talk about the first bullet point in this document, which is the underwriter selection process. And if you're looking on our agenda, we've jumped down a little bit because, as I mentioned, Paul's going to be on here. Thanks, Paul, for being here.
Good to see everybody again. So I don't know if you all remember, but the last time I gave an update, I talked about an A through Z process that we were conducting, and I think at the time I said we were about it at S or T. I think at that time we probably didn't have something that we defined as B, C, D, E, F. We just had a lot of stuff that we had done. And at the same time, we actually are very excited about documenting all of those things for the board, and we're going to do that because it really makes sense to really show all the different steps that we did. Some of the steps that we did early on were, considering whether there were other types of financing other than the one that we had done in 2008, 2012, traditional bank financing, some of those types of things. But once we got to step U, we decided that we needed to have very defined processes for X, Y, and Z. So we did that, and I think I want to keep this at a high level, but as we got, Z was the final decision making between the two investment brokers, Doherty, who had done the work in 2008 and 2012, and Piper, who was the person that Kelly brought in to take a look at some different proposal. And prior to that step, we talked about advantages, disadvantages. We developed a list of vetting questions for both of the underwriters, and we did that at, I guess that would be step Y. And so to kind of go to Z real quick, and then I want to kind of move back and talk about some of the takeaways, some of the things that we learned during that process. But in the end, we got to step Z, had great interviews with both Doherty and Piper. The thing that I think that I really liked what I heard is that everybody that was on the committee, John, Jim, Kelly, and myself, really felt comfortable that we could have selected either underwriter. So it was kind of that type of a decision. And in the end, we, at Decision Z meeting, we unanimously and enthusiastically chose Doherty to again do the work for St. Croix Prep. I think I would almost rather, as I highlight some of the things that we learned during the process, if you have some more questions about why we made that decision, I would love to field some of those questions. But again, I want to kind of keep it at a high level. So I'm just going to go back for a second and just talk about some of the things that we really did through those A through Z steps. Well, I think one of the biggest things that we did is that we made it very clear with both firms that we wanted to have an open and collaborative process during this whole process. Back in 2008, Doherty was the only game in town, and perhaps the way they went about things, it was just sort of trust us, and that's fine. They did a great job for us back in a time when there wasn't a lot of competition, but we really wanted to change that tune. And now, even though as we've gone through this, we're at A through Z, and we're done with that process of the selection, we actually have another little process now. And when I say little process, it's kind of a big process. It's from now until the issuance date, really monitoring what's going on within the market with rates and things like that. So one of the main things we wanted to do was to make sure that they were on board, that we wanted to be very involved in at least understanding their process. Another thing that we did was we tried to unlock the mystery on the rates a little bit. I think at the early stages, there was a lot of feelings that there's not a whole lot we can do. The market is the market, and to some degree, that's still the case. But we also talked about some things that we felt we could raise the level of expectations for both of the firms that were quoting, and I feel like we did that in some different ways. They know that even though we're in a BB plus rating bucket, that we expect our issuance to be more in line from a rate standpoint, similar to issuances that have been done in the triple B minus type rating structure. The reason for that is because we've been sitting in meetings with attorneys and both underwriters, and they all have said there's no reason that this issuance with St. Croix Prep should not perform as well as anything in the marketplace based on the history of St. Croix Prep, the financial performance, obviously the academic performance and reputation and some other things. So we basically wanted to make sure that everybody knew that, hey, our expectation levels are really high. So that was one of the more significant things that we wanted to do, is really raise the expectation level. We developed our own, what we called performance expectations, and some of those relating to cost containment. Some of them related to rates and how we're going to monitor things from now through the date of issuance. And also, again, the open and collaborative discussion that we want to have throughout the process. We also did a lot of work, again, to, instead of, there's only been 15 Minnesota charter school issuances in the last 2 years, basically, another one in April. But so we were kind of told that, what's the rate going to be? Well, it's going to be kind of, based on what the last one was and then what's going on in the market with investor liquidity and some of the things like that. But then we did find out that there is this index, the Money Market Directories Index, that there's some spreads that you can kind of gauge where it should be, as long as things in the marketplace with investors stay somewhat status quo. So I think we did some really good things there in terms of unlocking the mystery a little bit. Another thing that worked really well, the fact that Kelly brought in Piper. I think both firms gave us some different things that are now melded into one in terms of the way that the issue date, there's some savings that we're going to get because of what Piper actually brought into the process. Also, without going through a lot of detail, St. Croix Prep will have the lowest underwriting fee by 50 basis points over any of the other 15 issuances that have taken place since the beginning of 2014. And when you're talking... Yeah, thank you. That's a better way of saying it. And so when you're talking $26 to $30 million potentially, that's $130,000 to $150,000 just with the costs up front that we're going to have to pay. So that was a very positive thing. At the same time, as we were going through some of that stuff, we had to keep in mind that we wanted to make sure that the person that we were working with did not have that impact their performance when it came to the rate. So that's something that we spent a lot of time with. And that was also a reason that we talked with Blue Rose Advisory. And through our process, we kind of continue to try to evaluate whether Blue Rose would be a good partner in this process. And we weren't able to get them to provide us with enough stuff to pay the type of fees that they wanted to have to be part of the process. And currently, we have an offer out to them at a more acceptable fee range of $12,000, and it's defined. We've defined the scope of what we want them to do, which is kind of to track some of the market stuff from now through the date of issuance, being involved at the date of issuance. Blah blah blah. I could talk forever, so I'm going to have to try to keep this at a high level. So I think those are some of the big things that we gained through the process. We really dug in there and tried to make everybody be aware that the expectation that we have is exactly what we've been hearing from other people, that this should be an issuance that is really as strong as any charter school issuance in the last 2 years. And we don't want somebody to under-promise and over-deliver. That's fine, but we really want to kind of raise that expectation and carry it through to the date of issuance. There are some positive things that have happened in the marketplace since their proposals in March. I'm not going to comment much more on that because tomorrow that might be different. But so far, we're in great shape in terms of where things are going. And, it's almost like, hey, let's, we all would like to do it tomorrow, but, I think sometime in August is where we're going on that. So, again, I could keep talking forever. Nobody at my house wants to hear me talk about it. So, but I really would like to, the last time I know we didn't have a lot of time for questions and stuff like that, but I welcome them now. Anything about our decision-making process, any of the things that we've talked about.
I just have a quick comment that Paul was truly invaluable in the analytical rigor he brought to the process. and he doesn't like to be thanked or praised, because that's just kind of the person he is, but extraordinary benefit to the school, and I think Paul has brought tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of value to the process, so thank you, Paul, for your dedication to the process, your graciousness in the process, and you know, competition is a great good thing. We've got competition in this marketplace, which has brought great value, so we're in a great place. Questions? Great, thanks.
Thank you.
So we're gonna go to Bill, and he's gonna talk about the second bullet point on our field development summary.
Thank you again. I'm Bill Blotsky, the facilities director here. I'm also an advisory board member to the Friends of St. Croix Preparatory Academy. Individuals that sit on that board are Rusty Wilson, chair, he's here today, Dan Mells, Bob Heidel, and then Kelly Gutierrez. And I'm just going to walk through again our process as far as how far we've gotten so far in selecting a design firms to move us forward in our field development project. So it had to be close to 6 weeks ago when this field development project started to become more reality between the board and myself. We scoured with our experience the Minneapolis-St. Paul area and looked for qualified architects and engineers and design firms that would be qualified to do our field development project. And from that, we were able to select 6 firms to send a request for qualification. The request for qualification is really exactly that. We requested their qualifications to make sure that they had the right team, the right experience. And within that request for qualification, we defined a tentative scope. In order to get any proposals back from any firms, we had to define scope. The scope was a competition field that it still was not determined at that time. Could be an artificial field or a natural turf field. A track, home and away seating. It also included a press box, storage buildings, and then a concession stand and restrooms. On top of that, that was the main part of the competition. We would want 2 practice fields on top of that, 8 tennis courts, and then 2 baseball and softball fields. So that was just defined more generally to get these firms to understand exactly what they were proposing on or what we were asking for when we were requesting information. We had 6 firms. We received the request for qualifications. From there, we sat down as the board, reviewed those requests for qualifications, and from there we were able to narrow it down to 4 firms to offer a request for proposal. Proposal gets more detailed in project fees, hourly rates for those individuals, for the team. We also get more specific on their experience with all types of turf, artificial, natural, the different types of artificial turf, to really begin to understand their expertise in that area. Also, from a risk management standpoint, we talk about the construction administration. They're detailed to construction drawings and being complete, how they react to questions from the owner, which would be us, the contractor, just really to start to dive into who is the most qualified for this process or for this design. So from there, once the request for proposals were submitted, we sat down with each firm and interviewed them. And then from the interview, we were able to unanimously decide on the selected firm, which the selected firm is Larson Engineering. And Larson Engineering, just so you know, they're also currently doing the Stillwater athletic fields. They have also been the civil engineer on the original building and our expansion, so they were very well aware of our sites, and from a fee perspective, we were showing them to be more competitive based on the work that they've already completed on our site from a topographical standpoint and just knowing the site. Damon Farber is a landscape architect team with Larson. We found that they brought the most creativity to the project. We found that we have an athletic field project, but we also want an extension of our educational environment, and that Larson Engineering, or Damon Farber showed the most creativity and the extension of our educational environment into our athletic environment. And then they have U+B architecture, which will be the architects. They would be mainly responsible for any of the buildings out there, so that would be the concession stands, the storage buildings, press box, and items of that nature that would be architecturally in nature to the project. So from there, we will have so you know, a kickoff meeting with them tomorrow to start that process. Concurrently with the RFP, we had begun conversations as far as how we would do our contractor selection, as meaning how would we procure it, and there were a couple different methods on how we wanted to procure our contractor. We have design, bid, build, which would allow us to hire our engineer, allow them to design the project, and then at the end of the design, which would likely be 7 months from now, bid out the project to qualified firms. We also have what we call the best value approach, or construction manager. The construction managers are brought on board early. They provide input on the pre-construction process by providing cost modeling, so it's more accurate, up-to-date cost modeling from the subcontract community. That pre-construction service would allow us to be more diligent in our decisions moving forward upfront when we start to define program, and understanding a program would actually fit the budget that we end up having. And then they would follow us through all the way in, and then they would still bid out the job to the subcontracting community. So based on timing and when we would, the possibility of a GMP, we're not quite sure. We don't think we would need one with our financing, but that would allow us, put us into a category where a construction manager on board early. So from there, once we were able to define our contractor delivery method, it was determined at that point to sit down A&P, Adolphson and Peterson Construction, who was the general contractor on the original building and the addition. There were 2 different contractor delivery methods on the addition. It was a design build, so the contractor held the architect's contract, and that was done for the sake of progressing the project along in a fast method. So we went to A&P, asked them to give us a fee proposal. We wanted the fee for their project. We wanted their design or the pre-construction services fee at a % level or a lump sum level. We asked them for their hourly rates for all of their key personnel on the projects, which would be their project manager, their superintendent, their estimator, and any other project administrators that are on the project. We also asked for those individuals that they would propose for the project, their resumes, and how they would, and their experience with the projects. The intent behind that is that on the board with Rusty and Dan and Bob, they have at least 100 years of experience in the construction industry. So when we look at fees, it's a little bit different when you look at those fees and when you look at when you're looking for financing. Rusty and Dan are very up to speed as far as what is a competitive rate in the market, and then what is competitive fee, and then not only that, but what's a competitive rate for an hourly rate for an individual that would be performing on that for the general contractor. So today yesterday we received a proposal from Adolphson and Peterson, and based on the review of their fees and let me get this right, sorry. So the board felt that the fee for the scope of the work and the risk that they were assuming was appropriate. They have a proven track record on the project. They know the team. They would hit the ground running. There would be less cost associated with A&P coming on board because they already know the contract that we already had on the original building, so they know the contract, the terms to that contract. They know the building. They know the site. They know the dirt, all of that. So we would need less fees on the pre-con side and even on the GC side, on the construction side, getting up to speed and hitting the ground running. And like I said, between Dan and Rusty being seasoned construction professionals, they felt they were well qualified, and the fee was good for the scope of work that we were proposing. So with that, the board approved A&P as our general contractor, and will be brought on board, and with starting with pre-construction services immediately. So that's the process where we're at right now. We start, like I said, tomorrow with our design meeting, and that's really to define the process of how we want to move forward with making decisions. No, there won't be any design, there won't be any of that tomorrow. It's really just defining the process and then sitting down from there and understanding the program. We still have not, we have an idea of the program that we want for the field development, but we haven't defined it yet, so that will be forthcoming. Do you have any questions?
Questions from the board? It's our chance to.
Is the classroom and facilities that we talked about, is that part of the project, or reserving amounts for the faculty compensation? I know that was on some of our previous month's updates, but is there any construction on the actual school, or are we just talking about the field development without buildings for athletic use and educational use out there?
I could maybe speak to that because what the voice that Bill is having is on the construction piece, and there are a lot of parallel tracks moving here. So the bond reissuance will give us a number of benefits, and one is it will allow us to issue additional debt to do what Bill's suggesting. We will not issue to the limit of debt service that we currently have, and so that we will experience some savings in our lease payment. Does that make sense? And so if we pay less into our, for our lease payment, it will leave more money in the general fund. And leaving more money in the general fund will allow more for this board to allocate to salaries. Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure. So are we going to phase the improvements to the facilities and classrooms, or is that going to be a completely? We're not bidding that out, right? We're looking for contractors only to do essentially the field development project. If we do changes to the classrooms, that would be a separate project that would be bid out separately, correct?
And so the number of variables that are unknown is we know we're in a very attractive rate environment with the municipal rate right now. We haven't done all of the modeling. There will be a million combinations of the debt we could issue. It may be prudent to issue additional debt and build up the classrooms with that dollars, or it may be wiser to use that to fund those projects within the general fund in the school. But with a 30-year lease, we have the luxury of deciding, do we make it a capital improvement and put it on the building company side, or do we make it a leasehold improvement and put it on the school side?
Okay. I think what Tom's specifically asking is the lower school lab and the special ed space. So
I guess I should have asked for yours.
yeah, no, but I think that's
It was some of the things I think Wanda might have mentioned back at the February
So
retreat.
why don't you guys talk about that, because that's, I think, what Tom was referring to, just plan for that.
The plan for that lower school lab, it will be emptied out this upcoming summer. And Kelly can correct me if I get this wrong, but the intent is that we would meet internally and define what that's the needs for that space. So meet with Wanda's team, meet with Joanne's team, meet with Corey's team, and define what each one of them needs that space for. We would not make any improvements to that space during this upcoming year, but rather understand how that space would need to be used before we spend dollars to renovate it or change it, so that at least when we renovate it or change it, that it would be done correctly the first time, just to make sure that we don't spend funds that we just need to change. Is that correct,
Yeah.
Kelly? And that would be different. That would be a different delivery method. That would be something that we could handle in-house with myself managing. So we wouldn't have to hire a general contractor for that. We would internally bid that out appropriately for scope of work for competitiveness.
So that's that is one project that's in the immediate future, the near future. Then there's also all the improvements to the classroom that are already planned and are part of this budget that I believe we're going to review tonight. Is that right, Kelly? So we have upgrades to the classrooms that are taking place subject to the approval of this budget tonight, including bookshelves that were deferred several years ago, all kinds of upgrades to the actual built-in infrastructure in the classrooms.
Did you want me to review that?
If anyone's interested, I'd love to hear it.
Good. You want me?
Sure. Just a quick pass at it.
So what's in the proposed budget, which it was in there at the last board meeting, well. We did a prototype room. I don't know if you, Morton, you're welcome after the meeting to take it down there, room 126. And that prototype room was done with the help of the fourth grade team who helped design this over the summer. And we procured those built-ins for installation for the eighth grade. And the intent was to have one room that's a prototype, that it may not be exactly the way it's going to be done, but someone's allowed it to test it instead of spending a large amount of money in building out the whole lower school and then finding out that it didn't function correctly. So that one, the advantage to that one teacher to getting it early was that that teacher may not have the exact best model, but we put that in there to really, as a prototype room, to really test it, to make sure that, hey, does this work? Upon that, we were able to meet with each of the grade levels and determine any modifications. So now in the budget would be a complete build out of the lower school with all those built-ins, with a slight modification for each classroom or for each grade division level based on their specific need. Third grade might need one extra bookcase, or they might need a little less upper cabinets. Kindergarten's going to need something different based on the heights of the kids. So there'll be a little bit of a modification, but will actually be, if approved, we can move forward with the approval of purchasing the built-ins after we meet with each of the grade levels. During the summer here, we will put all provisions in place for those built-ins, which are being taken out, drywall, putting in the upper cabinets, and buttoning that back up. And then based on, usually for educational work, the best time to bid education work is in January, February, because all the work needs to be done during June through August. So based on the fact that we don't approve our budget until this time of the year, it's all cabinet factories are full for the summer. So we would get all this prepped and ready for the winter break, essentially when we would be able to actually physically see cabinets. There is a lot of work with electrical work, moving outlets up so they can plug things in on counters. That will take care of, if approved, will take place this summer. And then we'll order it, and then over the winter break, we'll actually install as much as we can, and then take the beach, or we'll work at the lower school. I don't know, 2 weeks will be enough, or whatever. I think the break might be less than 2 weeks would be enough time to actually get that all installed. But that's the plan for at least the lower school. And I think the only room that might be missing out of the lower school would be the music room, which we don't, we're not quite sure how. It's a larger room, and it's purposed. It's got two purposes right now. It's a lower school music room, and it's also some storage area for our special education department. So before we spend money putting cabinets in there, we need to make sure that with this added space of the lower school lab being open, that we repurpose after a year, understand the space in its entirety, and make the right decision from there.
Sounds like a good process. Thanks, Bill. Any other questions? Does that answer the question?
Can I ask one or no?
We're not going to take questions from the audience, but if you want to talk at the break or after the meeting, I'd be delighted to answer any questions. Or you can ask Bill, who's probably more knowledgeable than I'll ever be about all these things when he's going to be free and clear right now. So, thanks.
Anything else?
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
John's going to address Bowers Council's decision that was also made in this process in the last several weeks.
Yeah, so,
Number 3, or bullet point 3.
This process reflects something very similar to what Paul mentioned. The first time around, it was Doherty and really, the Borrowers Council, John Cairns, and who's formerly at Fraser Morgan. And at that time, that was the only game in town. And now, since we've gone through this process a couple times, there are some other options. So I think the whole idea behind our process was to try to save money. So similar to what Paul did. Spearheaded with saving money on the administrative fees. We took the same approach with Borrowers Council. Really we took a look at three people, and the other one aside from John Cairns, and John Cairns generally charges between $35,000 and $40,000 for the transaction. It's kind of like a piece of the pie, and everybody gets to grab what they want, and we just didn't think that was fair, a fair approach. Having done this the third time process of interviewing them and talking about their expertise, their involvement in review and comment, Appendix A, just their general approach, if their availability as well. Lindquist and Benham said that their fees would probably be in the neighborhood of $50,000, maybe more. And so what we did is we went with another one, actually a newcomer to the game, and that's Rupp Anderson Squares in Waldsburger. And they were interested in getting into this space, and they agreed to do the work. They showed the real estate expertise. They've done a lot of public finance transactions. They will work with another attorney of ours who has experience in this but is retiring. And so their fees we capped at $18,000. So they will do some work also on the side of reviewing architects' contracts, GC contracts, and so on. So we have recommended to the Friends of St. Croix Prep Board to authorize Rupp Anderson Squares and Waldsburger as the borrowers council. They have approved that. In this process, and I think that there's 2 approvals from the school side, which I'll let Jim run with, but that's authorization to approve the project in concept, and then we also need to approve the borrowers council as well. So, questions on the borrowers council selection process? Okay.
Hearing no questions, we've already touched on the Blue Rose Capital issue. Blue Rose Capital is an open question. They would bring potentially some additional analytical sophistication to the actual day of sale.
Jim, the rest of being fairly inappropriate. That Kristen has to be at the 7 o'clock concert, and she's doing an update on the diary. We insert that.
Yeah, so I was just going to finish with the Blue Rose. This is an open question, and the approvals, do we actually have the packet?
Yep.
Okay. So this was sent out by email. Does everybody have this? Thanks to Comcast, I did not until Shane helped me before the meeting because my Comcast email did not work all weekend. Has everybody seen this? I can read it. That would help. Does everyone have a copy of it in front of them? If not, I'll just read it. Whereas it is desirable and in the best interest of St. Croix Preparatory Academy and that the athletic facilities used by students are upgraded and expanded. Whereas it is desirable and in the best interest of St. Croix Preparatory Academy for the Friends of St. Croix Preparatory Academy, owner of the building and real estate leased by St. Croix Preparatory Academy for use as a K-12 public schoolhouse to reduce the debt service cost of the current tax-exempt bond obligation by refinancing these bonds. Whereas Friends of St. Croix Preparatory Academy, as owners of the building and real estate leased by St. Croix Preparatory Academy for use as a K-12 public schoolhouse, is willing to undertake the refinance of its tax-exempt bond obligations to fund the required improvements. It is resolved that the Friends of St. Croix Preparatory Academy, as the supporting organization of St. Croix Preparatory Academy, is hereby directed to take such action as its board of directors shall deem necessary to effectuate the refinancing of its existing tax-exempt bond obligations for the purposes set forth above, which are in the best interest of the school. It is further resolved that the officers and administrators of the school be and hereby are authorized and directed to take such actions as they shall deem necessary to support the efforts of Friends of St. Croix Preparatory Academy to effectuate the refinance of its tax-exempt bond obligations for the purposes set forth above. I can pass this around. It's Shane's copy if anyone else wants to look at it, eyeball it. What we're doing here is approving the process that we've been talking about for the past few months and moving forward with the refinancing and the process beginning of designing and potentially building athletic fields. Questions? Anybody want to see the motion?
I move to table that until we've heard the jury discussion, because I know I'm gonna have a number of questions, and it sounds like Kirsten needs to get to her concert. Kristen, sorry.
Okay. You want to step up here, or do you want to stay back there?
Whatever's easiest for you guys.
I'll get out of the way.
corner here. I apologize for the interruption and thank you guys for making time for me. I just have to run at 7 for my daughter's concert and just came for my other daughter's concert. So just wanted to update the board. The prairie planting has been delayed. And the reason it has been delayed is because the site preparation actually will take quite a bit more to have a successful prairie planted. So we're going to spend the summer doing site preparation, getting rid of the thistle, making sure that the berm takes. I don't know if any of you drove down and realized that's not as good as the berm that's right down the road. And the fire department is on board to burn with us again in the fall after a better site prep has taken place with getting rid of all that underlying thistle. The way it stands now, the thistle seed is still viable, and if we planted, it would just enhance that thistle more, so it's not, we don't want to leave you with a thistle patch, nor does anybody want to run around in a thistle patch. So our plan is to delay the planting until fall, and we'll have all the kids involved just as we had planned initially. We also received an additional grant to help pay for the site preparation over the summer from the Middle St. Croix Watershed District. And then Audubon and Pheasants Forever are still paying their parts to make this happen. So the prairie's not going in this week, but it is going in, and it will be dormant planting and then come up in the spring. So we'll have all the flowers that come up in the spring. So thanks for that, and I don't know if I should hand it over to you now or.
No, go ahead, it's fine.
Okay.
Let's keep it together. You go right ahead.
Together.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. Enjoy the concert. Thanks for popping in.
Yes, thanks.
Well, on behalf of the Conservation Committee, thank you for just allowing me to update you about our potential developing a trail system to the northeast or the northwest part of the property here. And I'm just gonna there is quite a lot of actual beautiful nature in the northwest corner. And basically the trails are going to use the existing marathon trail system and go into, there you go. No. I want to go with the right, very good.
It's all right.
All right, so, and this is just going to show the
Take your time, it's
potential
okay.
trail.
All right.
So, all right, so, masters of the trail that we that is helping kind of establish the trail is Bill Blonsky, who is left.
So I
Mr.
can't show it.
Vincent.
We have, wait, I don't have
Oh,
Photoshop on
sorry.
my
Oh,
computer.
okay, got it.
Use your word stand and
And
your imagination.
All right, so Mr. Vincent, who is very, very well acquainted with everything back there, he is indispensable because we'd get lost otherwise. Bill Blasky, Dr. Sandy Schreier, she's the bio teacher at the high school, and myself, Kristen Yoka. So our goals are to access that portion of the property and enhance our natural sciences, the art education, physical education, and also provide some training, interest for some of our sporting teams. All right, so I was going to show you the perimeter. We want a big perimeter of about a 10-foot wide path, just like the marathon is going to has, and that will be for general use and very easy to use. Then we'll try to get 2 or 3 little spurs into the internal woods and provide a real sanctuary for reading or for classes to enjoy. All right, and then also kind of access some of the hills for some of the and then also, depending on, we don't want to solidify a trail until all of the plans are kind of in place for the field development. That way, the backfield will be able to access some of these really beautiful little nooks and crannies of the property. All right. I was going to show you some pictures of another friend of our trail masters is Paul Smithson, through the Warner Nature Center, and he identified there's some beautiful flowering trees back there that could actually maybe have apples on them, and cherries and those kind of things. So we could potentially, use those, and just really outstanding, beautiful specimens of a cottonwood tree. I will try to send these pictures to you guys. It's pretty amazing. I'm amazed. 100-year-old stands of oaks and just quite a variety of things. So I think it's going to provide all kinds of opportunities, education and just enjoyment for our community. All right, and lots and lots of buckthorn. So that's why I'm here. Well, I did have lots of pictures of pruning shears, chainsaws, the industrial strength weed whipper, those kind of tools, and the adults that have them. I will be very interested to see if anybody could lend a hand in getting some of this started. The goal is to start on this perimeter trail, clearing by hand. So we will need all those things, plus groups of community groups that are interested in doing some service hours. So if there is a troop, like a Boy Scout troop, or somebody that you know that would be interested in doing the pruning shears, please contact me or contact the conservation committee, which Kelly is also part of, and Sky's. And the other thing that, if you know somebody that has an ATV nearby, would probably be, or if somebody on the board or people can maintain what you're able to establish from now until the end of the school year, that'd be fantastic. Otherwise, the buckthorn will overcome again. But thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm sure by this time next year, we hope to have the trail finished or looking really, really good, so that part of our spring celebration can be visiting some of these beautiful little spots. Thank you.
Thank you.
You did great with your words, thank you. Approval of the Borrowers Council, and those are both in the resolution that I so poorly read, and Shane has a copy of it if he's willing to share it, pass it around.
Everyone should have a copy of it.
Is it in the packet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's here we go.
Oh, it's in the very, it's the paper cut copy, the very last.
Look at that. Could have saved you all the agony of hearing that. So, everybody has a copy of it then. Tom had comments or questions. Anyone else is welcome to ask questions or make comments.
I was just curious about how this relates to the MDE review and comment draft that's mentioned in the agenda as well. Is that something we'll be approving tonight as well?
That's a separate item, and I don't know whether we'll be approving it tonight because I haven't reviewed the draft, so it would be for information only, I believe, Tom. And that's a process that in all these bond transactions that the two we've done, and the one we're contemplating, MD requires us to actually submit a detailed proposal for what is intended with proceeds from the bond transaction.
So that would likely be approved at the June meeting, then?
I believe the June meeting. I'm not.
It was our hope.
Yeah, please.
It was our intention to have it for you to review and to approve tonight, but it's not done. And there is some question with MDE requires a review and comment is 1.5 million. And we have this project, which is being proposed, is a $3.5 million project, but the building piece is only 700,000. So is it a review and comment even required? So I'm having conversations with them right now about that. And so the labor hasn't been completed or hasn't been put into the review and comment until we know what's required from MD.
And so the distinction again is that if it's a review and comment only for buildings, or is it a review and comment for athletic fields? In which case our project would trigger a review and comment requirement.
It's not prepared, and they allow they give themselves 60 days, they being MDE, from the date that they receive the review and comment to when they have to, or are committed to returning it, approved or not approved, back to the schools. So with our timeline, if you do the math, if we hope to refinance in August, and emphatically, the sooner we refinance, the better it is for the school, because our bonds would be refinanced at a lower rate. So we want to get that in quickly. So a possibility would be to ask for a special meeting, which these are special times, so special times require special meetings. Is we might request a special meeting before June 20th or whatever to do the review and comment. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
But this resolution precedes the review and comment, as does approving the review and comment precedes submitting the review and comment to MD. They require a board approval before we submit it.
So the motion that I now belatedly learn we all have is for approval of the project concept and the borrower's council, not for the MDE review and comment. Other questions, comments, thoughts?
Well, I have one other. First of all, thank you for circulating the conflict of interest policy that Friends of St. Croix Prep is using. I think this is a very good policy, and that addresses a lot of my questions that I raised at the last board meeting. But I still have a question about whether if someone on this board had an interest in the bonds that are issued by the school that are going to be refinanced, whether that would be a conflict of interest that would need to be disclosed. So that's the question that I still have. And I know that we did some emailing about that in connection with the Form 990. I took a look at the St. Croix Preparatory Academy conflict of interest. Looks like that would be, I guess that's my question. If somebody held bonds who is on this board that we're looking at refinancing, is that something that would be disclosed through a conflict of interest process that we have in place?
Right.
Sounded like no as of last week, but I'm not sure if anything in the interim has changed.
Well, they're all held by institutional investors, so there's no retail bonds in our current issuance. So no one at this table, unless they own a share of Vanguard that maybe owns some of our bonds, owns it. So I think that's a big distinction, is that we have 100% institutional investors in our current issuance. With that said, even would it be a conflict of interest if St. Croix Prep board member owned Friends of St. Croix Prep bonds? And I don't know the answer to that, but I know they don't. Do you know what I mean?
And so, and the actual issuer is Baytown Township.
Oh,
So-
yeah, technically.
So I'm not sure that it would even, Friends of St. Croix Prep is benefiting, but the issuer is Baytown. And so, it's a good question. I don't dismiss the question at all, and I think it's worth pursuing as we go forward. Under the current structure, unless there's a possibility that there would be retail bonds sold and that someone would own them individually, that is a real possibility. It's remote, but it's possible. And so I think it's a good question. We could pursue it as we go forward. But under the current scenario, it's not a conflict of interest because they're held in these huge Vanguard or other funds. When I still call Lutheran Brotherhood, that's right.
I understand the question better, I can. lease revenue bond, what I call ourselves issuers, but lease revenue bonds like assisted living housing and different sorts of nonprofits that issue municipal bonds have to be issued through a municipality, and our municipality is Baytown Township. So.
Might be a question for borrowers council.
Yeah.
It might affect their
Well said.
$18,000 bid, but I think it's money well spent, and I think it's something the board should follow through on.
Duly noted. Thank you, Tom. Anything else? I'm looking for a motion to approve this resolution as presented.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Who's the?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Is that in a separate motion?
This resolution.
That is in the resolution. That's all. Okay. All right, I'm looking for a separate motion then, and I'll actually start with the motion to approve borrowers council of, and I don't know this by heart, Rob Anderson Squires and Waldsberger as our borrowers council. That is my motion that we approve them as our borrowers council. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks. Any further discussion on our proposed, what I'll just call Squires, bond council, borrowers council?
Questions or comment? Can I do that while we do discussion?
Absolutely.
We are saving a bunch of money with this, these cost of issuance and cost expenses that we are learning through the competitive process. So I could not more wholeheartedly endorse a change in borrowers council, because this is actually, the less money we spend on this, the more money is going to come out of the come for the project. So
I haven't done the math, but I think between the borrowers council and the fee and the reduction in the percentage of the fee to 50 basis points, I mean, there's probably a couple $100,000 coming out of this refunding transaction compared to what historically has been paid in the marketplace as recently as this year. So, any further discussion on borrowers council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So, should we jump back to the consent agenda?
yeah, go ahead.
Everyone definitely has seen the consent agenda. Any comments on the minutes? Any comments on the wonderful reports from the executive director, activities director, lower school principal, upper school principal, middle school principal, and special education director? And Bill's not on it, so it's the facilities director too. Comments, questions? Okay. Have a motion to approve the minutes as submitted and the consent agenda its entirety.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're making progress. We're backfilling. Is it time for Kelly?
Yes.
I will start. Amanda couldn't be here tonight, so I'll start with the Lions Open update. Okay. My approach, having introduced the preliminary budget last month, is to just roll forward what has changed in our projections since then. And if you have any questions or comments, even about last month's budget or numbers I brought forth to that point, do let me know. But I'll just start with bringing you up to speed, and we'll go from there. Our enrollment projection is still for FY17 at 1162, and enrollment drives our budget. That's heard about. So we will have no changes in that as proposed. So we have three funds: general fund, food service fund, and community service fund. In the general fund, the changes, or I should say, we are projecting $12,075,000 in revenue. And that's a $25,000 change, which really is a 0% change. And the two factors that have changed since April's projection is $5,000 in Q-Comp revenue increase. We actually corrected or updated the formula at MDE, the per pupil funding, so it increased our revenue projection for next year, $5,000 more than projected in April. State special ed, $20,000, and that was a change in staffing. So increasing that a bit. On the expense side, we're projecting a total expense of $11,785,000, and that's a $117,000 increase from what I projected last month, a 1% difference. As soon as I project salaries, something changes when you budget the way we do, and that is on an actual per staff projection. So the net of all of our changes, and they're all identified in Schedule 9A, our general fund changes in salaries net to an $11,000 increase, which is with our salary line item 0% or de minimis. Our benefits, which you may recall we discussed at length last month, and historically we had left our benefits flat, and you as a board voted to assume that half of the increase, premium increase, so I needed to increase our benefits, but I conservatively estimated at $53,000, but a portion of those benefits are booked to special ed, so they don't affect general ed, and it's only $37,000. You'll see here is affecting general ed expenses, so we had to adjust expenses up to that amount. Contracted services is a net that I reclassed to projected salary increases from, or a new position that I originally budgeted as salaries. I'm proposing, and it may get switched back, but it's all in general ed, proposing that we do contracted services for the music and band lessons, and that's still in discussion. So this is a living budget. Perfect example of it. Utilities, we were able to pull down $16,000. I had mentioned the water seemed unusually high, but we dropped the number in, and with closer look, we did over budget for that, so I was able to bring that down. And with that savings, we allocated to repairs and maintenance. So that is detailed on Schedule 12 in the variance column. What we were able to add to that. And frankly, 10,000 of that 24,000 was a transposition error on my part, so that almost washes out the two facilities related if you take out my transposition error. So the net of that is $117,000, all their various expenses. General ed surplus is $198,000. That's down a net of $92,000, but it'll leave our fund balance to $3,112,000 in the general fund. Food service fund, we're projecting a $93,000 loss, and that's $11,000 more than we projected in April. That's because we received some updated quotes on our build-out project, so costs went up a little bit from the quote that we had a year ago, so I'm needing to adjust that. But even with that, our ending fund balance will be $46,000. So we're still in the black on Fund 2, which on Fund 2 and Fund 4, it's very important to note that when items are in the red as far as the fund balance, because those all have to end the year on a zero balance. So anything that is negative in those funds needs to be transferred out of the general fund. So my target on those two funds is to keep them in the black. So that's Fund 2. Fund 4, community service, that's where our extracurriculars, not extracurriculars, but extended day programming, camps, driver's ed, that type of thing, facility rentals runs through. And there is no change in that, so we're still projecting a net revenue of $8,000 and an ending fund balance of $24,000. And just an item of note, at some point, that spend that money on, and it would be more general, areas that programs within Fund 4 would benefit from, and that would be maybe, sound panels for the cafeteria, or sound panels for the atrium, or playground, or, whole school type, activities. So that is our each individual fund. So as a school-wide activity, or school-wide program, we're projecting annual surplus of $113,000, ending fund balance of $3.1 million. And you'll note a scary big 92% decrease from last year's or last month's original projection, but it's 92% of not a very big number. So basically, I'm projecting $104,000 more in expense than I projected last month. But we are still well within our other two targets, which is a fund balance of 25% and debt service coverage of 1.0. In that, we're going to have fund balance of 26% and debt service coverage of 1.19. So our numbers still look very solid, and I'm comfortable proposing this budget. I mean, it's a final budget for now. It will be reforecasted for living document, but for the upcoming school year. Given particularly that our enrollment is fairly conservatively projected, and most of our contracts are negotiated.
Great.
Any questions?
Does Fund 2 have to be down to Fund 4?
Both 2 and 4 have to be in the black, and only
And only Fund 4 needs to go to 0?
if it's in the red, I need to bring it back up to 0. So then I need to transfer basically money from the general fund to, so I'd have to take money out of the school programming, the classroom.
To spend the $24,000 of surplus
Oh.
on some qualifying.
Expense, yeah. We don't need to spend it down.
Okay.
We can continue to build it
Okay.
up.
All right.
It's just if it was in the negative, we'd have to bring it up to 0.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No, don't apologize.
Good question. Other questions, comments, concerns? Anything else you want to add, Kelly?
No.
Looking for a motion to approve the 2017 budget as presented.
Well, I'm going to move that, and I'd also like to say that I've been more closely associated with the finances this year than any other year. My goodness, the amount of work that goes into a budget, you don't just hit the button and have it spit out. So good job, Kelly, and I know Kelly's satisfied with it, and that's good enough for me, so I move we adopt it.
I'll second that, both the comment and the motion. And I just want to thank Dave and Susan and Paul, who's already left, for serving on the finance committee. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? We have a budget for 2017. Thank you.
I have a very specific language that if someone can make a motion with this language, I took my eye off that for a second.
That's all right. So,
Can I give it to you? And it just basically reflects, and this is for the auditors to track back for minutes and see that this was the exact budget that was approved. So
Read the whole section.
this specific motion.
All right.
And others can follow along on the finance report.
I make a motion to approve the fiscal year 17 budget as presented. General fund revenues of $12,100,480 and general fund expenditures of $11,902,335. Food service revenues of $324,279 and food service expenditures of $417,195. Fund 4 remains revenues of $53,440 and community service expenditures of $45,269.
Thank you.
Okay.
I second that motion. Deja vu. Thanks, Shane. All in favor?
Aye.
The accountants will be happy.
Yes, I'm pleased I don't have to bring this back to you guys to do the next month, which has been done.
Thanks for refocusing on that.
And I'm only trying to drive a big truck through my one agenda item.
Yeah. Go for it.
You all had received the, which is our auditors, the finance committee, which is meeting monthly, this past 6 months, has recommended that we maintain our current auditors, in that changing auditors at this point, first of all, we did not have time to thoughtfully, and I feel strongly that the board should be driving the auditor RFP, request for proposals process and interviews, because it's an accountability structure for the school, so I don't feel comfortable doing that. And we basically didn't get to that this year. Plus, we feel with a new finance committee that is really functioning at a high level right now, would benefit from going through an audit cycle with Clifton Larson Allen, who has been with the school since day one. And they audit a great percentage of, which isn't very specific, but a great percentage of public schools and charter schools in the area. So their competency is unquestionable. And the rates that they are proposing increase is $75 on the audit side and $100 on the 990 side.
Kelly, are you saying it's good to stick with them for one more year because of the consistency, but we should look at something else in the future?
I'm sorry, yes. We have targeted a 5-year cycle to review auditors, and this is the 5th year.
Okay.
We did not get, and did not feel it was strategic to switch auditors on the same day that we have a finance committee getting up to speed. And
So keep them on for a 6th year and then decide what we want to do.
it would be on our agenda to evaluate auditors next year.
Sounds great.
And do you think the finance committee will bring a recommendation of the board on that, or would you like the board to initiate it?
I think the board members on the finance committee would be good to lead that charge.
Okay.
How about if we come with a recommendation for the proposal?
Great.
For the RFP.
That would be most helpful.
You want that now?
I have, just from our previous conversation last month, we could take one, I have added we need to vote 2 nights on the World's Best Workforce Committee. It has to be done. We talked about this for a couple meetings, and I believe our last meeting, we discussed what the committee should look like. And after lots of discussion, it was suggested that we kind of read up on this so that everyone is aware of what World's Best Workforce is, and that tonight we vote on the committee, and then as well as our June meeting. So everything is the same from your previous. The only changes is that the committee may consist up to 12 members, and the addition was the student and the community member from our discussion. So that is where we are at.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just start off with a motion to approve and looking for a second.
Second.
Is there discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I have just one thing to hand around. I don't think it's inconsistent with anything that Amy just provided. But if you didn't have a chance to look at the statute, these are just some of the highlights that are covered in the statute. So you can take a quick look at it. So, as long as this district advisory council, understands that this is part of their charge under the statute, then I think this is great. And I fully support the motion that's in front of the board. So maybe we just take a second or two to kind of read those bullets. it's worth, the last bullet point I think is especially interesting. This school district is going to become increasingly diverse. We as board members, as part of our assurances to the Friends of Education and under the charter school law, we have an obligation to market to low-income students and students of color. So I had a very interesting experience at Oak Park Elementary this week. I saw some gentlemen playing cricket. I've never seen cricket before in my life. I've seen it on TV, but I was there for an event. Immediately recognized this is a very diverse school, and was out on the grounds afterwards. They were having an open house, and there were these gentlemen, maybe they were parents of the students, I'm not sure, but they appeared to be of Indian descent, India, Asia, and they were playing cricket. And that was a moment where I thought, boy, am I in Stillwater right now? Because that's not how we're viewed, and that's not even how I viewed Stillwater itself. So I was really taken by surprise by that. So in terms of this surveying requirement, I think it's just very interesting that we're supposed to be surveying our affected constituencies. And I think that doesn't mean just the people who attend the school, but the people who could attend this school. And I hope that advisory council in the school looks into doing that. There may be a way to partner with Stillwater Area High School in order to do that surveying together, maybe offset some of their costs in doing that as well, because they're bound to that same obligation. So again, I don't think any of these bullets are inconsistent with what is in the motion in front of us and has been seconded. I just wanted to make sure that people understood that these are some of the nuggets that are in that law.
Yep. I think it looks pretty parallel, so thank you.
A side note, Tom, I looked out my window this morning, and the high school gym class was playing cricket in the park.
I had kids about middle schoolers are too, yeah.
I had the same reaction.
Cricket is on the rise. That's funny.
You said market to a diverse demographic. You can market, did I hear you say that right?
Yeah, we have an obligation under the charter school law and in the statement that we sign as board members, our statement of assurances to Friends of Education, that we'll make sure that this school markets its services to low-income students and students of color. So I'm not sure how that gets done. Maybe it's connecting with Washington County and asking where some of those demographics reside in Washington County and making sure that we're reaching out to those neighborhoods and that they know about the school and the services that we provide.
Do we market to anyone right now? Is that where is there a school
No,
market?
but and we have specifically marketed to low-income people this spring in response to the concern of the statutes that were so what did we do, John? We dropped off applications that or flyers.
Was part of that group.
So
We
family
went to some
means,
churches.
Cimarron churches, so kind of our community's low-income areas. And the last time I checked, our minority enrollment parallels Stillwater, but we don't specifically market to any minority population.
But we are required to. I mean, that's the challenge, and I don't know how to I don't know how to operationalize it. I don't have an answer to that, and I'm really glad and encouraged to hear that those things are happening this spring. But for what it's worth, I mean, the Charter School Act and our Statement of Assurances, maybe it's meant for students that are, maybe it's meant for schools that are in different geographic areas, but we signed it. So, I think we need to make sure that we're, using innovative approaches to see how we can fulfill our obligation.
Another piece that we've done, maybe this isn't right, but we are hosting adopted families and adopted students support group here, and that has been marketed to the Stillwater community, not just our school community.
I'm really grateful for the thoughtful input, and I appreciate the focus on the statute, and I appreciate the spirit in which it was done, so thank you very much. Any other comments? Hearing none, there's a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Amy, for all your work on this, and thanks to everyone for their comments on it. What am I missing? Strategic items? So, governance, Beth's not here. Compensation, Tom, is there anything you wanted to talk about in the final items on our?
We have minutes. So we've
All right.
had a number of meetings over the last few weeks. What you'll receive are the minutes of the compensation committee. The first meeting was held just before our April board meeting. And then there were 2 meetings after that as well. That was the kind of a reboot or re-kickoff meeting, I guess, on April 19th. We met on May 3rd with the principals and with the special education director. And then on May 10th, we met with the activities team, Rich and Kevin. So these minutes summarize some of the things that were discussed. There's planned upcoming meetings with Shane and Jim and John. And then we'll also want to connect up with the finance committee as well, I think. So more to come. But that's our status update.
Thank you for providing us.
Thanks, Tom. Any questions? Anybody on the minutes as presented, or any tabs of compensation? Hearing none. Shane, Nicole never came back from the concert. All right. Shane, do you have anything on succession planning without your wing person?
Without my wing person? Well, Nicole and I have kind of been compiling like documents and information as we go, so it's still like very much in a draft format. But I mean, if anybody's interested, we have this on PDF, and I can email it out to you so you can see like what we've been doing.
That'd be great.
But otherwise, I've got one copy, and I mean, anybody's more than welcome to have it. I don't need it because I'm continuing to work on it. And I think Nicole has a copy over there also. So
it's an impressive start. Thank you. Lots of color.
yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Yes. Thanks for your effort, Shane. Looks like a great start. Parent survey.
Sure. We met with, since last meeting, right? My days kind of blend together. Okay. We met with the administrative team, Beth and Susan and I, and we kind of talked to them of where we were, and we brought the draft to them. And through the discussion, and administration team was several people, so it was principals, it was Kelly, it was John, it was Kevin, it was Rich, it was Bill, it was Amanda, Terry, anybody else I might be missing. So once we had everyone in the room and we presented the draft to them, we realized this was, we maybe bit off more than we could chew in the short period of time when we wanted to do this. And so this is the goal of getting input from everyone that's going to be benefiting from this, and hopefully having this happen in the fall. So, and how we do this, maybe we said go through like a Google Doc that I just set up, and people can kind of add what they want. We also talked about how we group the questions, a lot of different things. So we want to make this meaningful, so we're just taking some time to make sure that we get it all right.
I think the idea was to roll it out to the community by end of October, beginning of November.
That sounds great. I appreciate the effort at the conversation with the individual people and all the administration team. That's a great idea. Thank you for the thoughtful effort. Any questions about it? Parent survey? Any other questions? Hearing none, looking for a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.